What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just the Total Package, and Craig the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic, greatest rivalries, Sting versus Vader. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. Can you do us a solid on social media and give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook and X at Our Wrestling Podcast? Jess, it's Sting month, really is what it is, right? It's all Sting month, so we're going to be doing a ton of Sting as he's on his way out forever. That I don't want to say it's a sad moment, it's kind of a proud moment, but I don't think we ever thought we'd see him last this long, but Sting is finally leaving.
He's 60-something. Like, he should go, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. He's 60-something. Like, he lasted a long time.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about a rivalry that for some reason kind of gets missed. But there's some stuff in here that are my favorite moments of Sting, all in all, which I'm sure we'll talk about in another episode. But talking about our favorite moments, I know that's coming up too, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be awesome. But for some reason, this rivalry gets a little overlooked. But the Sting Vader set was pretty dope in WCW. It was a lot of fun. Craig, anything you want to add before we jump into this bad boy?
No, I think anyone that was lucky enough to be around during this time and watch it, it wasn't. It was on the magazines, but because it was in WCW/NWA, it wasn't necessarily. You had to be there and you had to watch it, but they had some of the greatest, most brutal matches in feud. Like Vader, the biggest strongman, big man, and Sting could give it. He could take it, and I don't think there's that many people. It's just a quintessential Sting, a guy that could wrestle with anyone and be willing to take a bunch of punishment where a lot of people wouldn't. Like, he was just, it shows how great Sting was with this feud. I'm glad we're doing a month-long Sting, and I'm glad that Jess has kind of steered us towards this. He definitely deserves it.
Yeah, probably deserves more than what he got, but he's definitely I think he's always given more than what he's taken in the business, is the best way to put it. So, well, let's jump right into it. While Sting versus Flair usually gets brought up when talking about great WCW rivalries, this one does get overlooked, as we talked about. From 92 to 94, Sting and Vader met in rings all over the country countless times, and several instances produced some of the best matches in WCW history, if not wrestling history overall. Unfortunately, it's not as well remembered amongst the modern fans. But we remember it because we are the stories of the diehards. So let's jump into Havoc 91. Sting's first in-ring encounter with Vader was not only in a multi-man gimmick match, but in a match where Vader wasn't even the focus. Instead, the big rivalry going into Havoc 91 was between Sting and Cactus Jack, who introduced Abdullah the Butcher as some seriously dangerous backup. Abdullah was dangerous,
Yeah, because the hepatitis.
Yeah, you like to
I was
give
going to say the hepatitis. I wasn't going to say it, but we had to say it. The opening bout of the show was the infamous Chamber of Horrors match, a 4-on-4 affair that involved zapping an opponent from the other team in an electric chair.
They opened with it? It was the opening match?
Yeah, yes. The least we talk about that match, the better. I just had to throw it in there because they were in the same match together, and they probably, did a couple spots with each other or whatever. But it didn't technically start their feud, but they did. They were against each other in 91, so I decided to go with it.
They decided to go with it.
I really shouldn't have brought up Halloween Havoc 91 Chamber Horrors match. There's really no reason.
Well, it's where it started, right? So you have to kind of talk about it.
No, I think Abdullah died in the electric chair, so I mean, it's important to talk about it.
Oh my goodness. Sting versus Vader at WCW Great American Bash in 92. Backed by manager and in-ring legend Harley Race, Big Van Vader proved a dominant force in WCW, so a world title shot for the big man was inevitable.
Also,
WCW, yeah, go ahead.
So all before, the reason why Vader debuted in 1990 and then he came back and then he was in the Chamber of Horrors in 91 was because he was on loan from New Japan. I don't remember if it was All Japan or New Japan he had a contract with, but WCW I think it was New Japan. WCW had a really good relationship all throughout the years. WCW fought hard to keep a good relationship with New Japan. So Vader was there. So there was Jim Ross would always say there's no point pushing him. if he's just going to leave, after a while and finish out his contract. When his contract lapsed and he decided to come back to the States and wrestle for WCW, 92 is when shit became real. Like, where they're like,
Mm.
okay, we're going to put like push behind Vader, and they needed it. What a
There's
lot of
some real
people don't
stock behind it.
remember either is after Flair left in 91, WCW was falling apart before that anyway, during the Jim Herd era. And when Flair left in 91 and took the title with him, it almost killed them. If they didn't have a billionaire, Ted Turner, backing them up, they would have, any other business would have shut the fuck down. Like,
It
there
would
would have
have
been
folded. It would have
there's no
folded.
way.
Yeah.
But they needed something because they put the title on Luger. Luger was a heel, didn't light the world on fire with the run. Not the worst run, but they needed to put it on Luger. Where's our hero? And it's Sting. So they tied their relationship back in. Sting wins a title in February of 92, and then they throw Rude at him. And he already feuded with Rude. Same thing as the first fucking title run when he beat Flair. They had no credible challengers for him. I mean, Rude was credible, but he had already been down that road. So it was like, finally Vader comes along. He signs with WCW exclusively. And it was this thing that Sting was willing to get in there with him and take. Vader was known for being stiff and scary, even in 92. And Sting was like, I'll do it. Like, it's fine. So WCW needed this feud in 1992. It was one of the things to me that helped reignite them. And then when that piece of shit Bill Watts, who took all the mats away and all that stuff, finally got fired and Bischoff took over, then Sting and Vader were able to kind of settle in. But it started here in July of 92, like Dave will read on. It was probably one of the most surprising, in a good way, matches I'd ever seen, like, that involved like a
Yeah.
heel and a face, because WCW was always known for putting a lot of stock behind heels. Where Vince, look, if a heel wins in Vince land, it was cheating. But in WCW, they're like, heels can win fair. And as a wrestling fan, I loved that about WCW, because sometimes
Right.
the heel would just pin him, like, any face. And I was like, oh shit, they just beat him clean. Like, it always kind of kept that real edge with you. That's what WCW had going for it. Everything else they couldn't get right. But one of the beautiful things about WCW, and it's why I like AEW so much too, is it's totally different, and you need that in wrestling.
Yeah, and WCW was that. It was definitely that heels can win clean, and the chase was on a lot of the times. The faces held a lot less than WWF, that's for sure. So with world champion Sting and the sites, the two clashed at on televised events leading up to their big pay-per-view match. But at a house show in '92, unfortunately, this was in Atlanta, Omni Coliseum. Vader would injure Sting's ribs by giving him a pretty nasty Vader bomb. And this kept Sting out of action for like a couple of months. So we had to wait for Sting to come back from injury. But then Vader would shock the world, as Jess said, and pin Sting cleanly to win the WCW World title in the main event of Great American Bash of said year of '92.
Ray's calling for the power bomb. And, oh, God! He just planted him with a power bomb. And Vader has won it. Vader has won the world title.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the match and new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Big Van Vader!
Which is pretty awesome.
Is that when he folds him up like an accordion?
Yes, he power bombs the shit out of
Yeah.
him, and like just folds him
After
up.
he comes back from injured ribs from the same
He
power
brings
bomb,
his
yeah.
knee over to Sting's
Yeah.
forehead. So when Vader covered him, he fucking folded him in half and pinned him. And I remember Joe was traveling with his dad and moving, and there was no internet back here or anything like that. And I remember Joe knew that he was going to miss the pay-per-view. Joe calls me, like, him and his dad make a stop the next day. And Joe called me. He's like, don't say anything about Great American Bash. I was like, I'm not. And he's like, I had a dream. Did Vader pin Sting? And they go, he did. And Joe's like, I dreamed it. And like, I'll never remember. He's like, yeah. He's like, how did he beat him? I was like, he powerbombed him and pinned him clean. And Joe's like, he powerbombed him in my dream and pinned him clean. And I was
That's
like,
hilarious.
that's exactly what happened. Like,
I
and
love that.
Joe was like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. Like, we were just like, wow. Like, and then Vader
That's
instantly
fantastic.
was made. The good thing about that is like, what WCW, I don't even think they knew this, but like, by doing, Vince would need the character to get over before he would make a choice like that. Like, WCW
Yeah.
was more like, we're going to get him over because he just folded Sting like an accordion in the middle of the ring, and he's a monster. So he will get himself over. And Vader was incredibly talented, like, intimidating anyway. And Race as his manager was a great call. And it just worked. WCW was that way. They were more organic because they had to be, because they fucking fired bookers every 6 months. So like they had to. So it's like when that happened, they're like, oh yeah, yeah. And Watts was always a fan of a big monster. He had Terry Gordy, he had One Man Gang, he had Steve Williams, he had Duggan. Like he had big guys that he always liked. So he was just like, fuck yes, like let him beat Sting, let Sting chase him because that's what you do. That's going to draw money. That was always Watts' formula. Like so, he wanted to recreate that. To his credit, he wanted to recreate that here in '92. It was like the one thing he did right.
Yeah. This is a weird blip, but I'll read it anyway because it's a much bigger blip. But we're not talking about this person right now. But after losing the belt to Ron Simmons in August of '92, Vader would take time off due to a knee injury, and Sting would engage in a brief feud with Jake Roberts while he recovered. But I just have to kind of put that out there. That that was a big deal when Ron Simmons won the title. I just have to say that was kind of a big deal. First African American champion, I think, in either federation at that time. So didn't want to just glance over that, but we've talked about Ron Simmons quite a bit. It's in our archives, and we've talked about that moment, and it was huge for so many people in wrestling that followed, and in those days especially, it was a big deal. So I just want to make sure we just kind of touched on that because it's big. Upon recovering from the knee injury, Big Van Vader returned back to action in the fall of '92 and subsequently entered the King of Cable tournament, the finals of which would go down at Starrcade of '92. When December rolled around, the finalists were Vader and his rival, Sting. While Starrcade '92 is generally considered a disappointment, the King of Cable final round was the highlight of the show, with Sting able to put away Vader and win the tournament in an acclaimed match. This would mark the first win Sting would get over Vader.
Go up one more time. 450 pounds up there. And he slammed him. He slammed him. And he got him. He got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the match, and now the King of Cable, Sting!
This is my favorite match of theirs ever. Even over their strap match at Super Bowl, which you'll get to.
Really?
I love the Super Bowl strap
The
match.
King of Cable.
This was like this match.
Yeah.
They just fucked each other up like in here, and like it was needed. Like Meltzer of all people even wrote about how bad '92 Starrcade was, and it was a shit pay-per-view. But he was like Sting and Vader were phenomenal. Like they were just like this match that happened, and you're like, oh, thank God, like Jesus, like. Because you just so many times WCW is like, oh, it's dead. Now this is it. It's gonna die. Like, and then you would see Sting and Vader, and you're like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God. Like, they made my faith.
You're like, oh God.
Like, watching this piece of shit promotion, like, still I want to watch it because of them.
I think for me and Craig, and while the match is good, we're not trying to deny that. We agree with you. We have a little more love for the strap match in '93 that we're going to talk about now. So as silly as the hype videos were, the actual match between Sting and Vader at Super Bowl was proving to be one for the ages. While the world title wasn't on the line, and the match was White Castle of Fear strap match, which was kind of weird. Where were we selling White Castles? I don't even know.
They were drinking them, and they were drinking.
Yeah, right. Where both men
like they put them in the corners,
after
and then they would drink them. Like when they would get the advantage, they would just drink a white.
That's how you do it. No. Where both men were actually tied together at the wrist with a leather strap, and the goal of touching all four turnbuckles in succession. So if you broke the succession, you would have to start over. Vader and the ref, it was the ref's discretion on what would be broken up or what was in succession.
He hits the last one, it's over. Sting holding onto the rope.
Ollie Race.
Look at Race, he's hitting Sting's hands, he can't break him loose. He got it.
He touched it. Vader will win it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Super Brawl 3 main event, Big Van Vader.
Vader would win the match, but Sting once again proved that he was Vader's ultimate rival. I just remember Vader at so many points whipping the crap out of Sting.
He was bleeding. Vader was bleeding from his ear on this one. I remember Sting hit him so hard with the strap. He took the mask off him, or Vader did kick, and blood was pouring down his ear. Like, and I remember when he won, he was like, "Fuck!" Like at the end of the match, like Vader was like humbled in the corner. He's like, "Jesus Christ!" Like
this felt like the most aggressive Sting was ever at that time. to anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Vader was always the kind of guy like, let's do this. Let's go hard. Let's go 100%. I mean, lay it in as Macho would do, right? So I just lay it in, and I think Vader liked it. Like, it was something he was proud of if it was snug like that. And I think that's where both of them just kind of meshed well. Where Sting would take it easy with others because that's what they wanted. He would like flirt, Vader's like, let's take this up a notch, and Sting responded, which was always so great about Sting. I think he could wrestle with anyone, and anybody's strengths, weaknesses, he could mask. So Sting considered his pursuit of Vader with the belt. Weeks after the strap match, the two clashed again at a house show in London in March of '93, where Sting was able to finally beat Vader, ending the big man's world reign at 71 days. However, Sting's ensuing reign didn't last long, as Vader won it back in Dublin 6 days later. So, which is super interesting.
That was
None of this
weird.
is televised.
Jesus.
That's
I don't remember
weird.
any of that.
Well, they were trying to spark up international business, so I just remember tuning into WCW television that week, and they're like, "This happened." I'm like, "Wow!" And like, and 6 days later, this happened. I'm like, "Okay." Like, so they were just trying. They were trying to drum up international business at this point.
What does it hurt? It's a 6-day stint. What's the problem? Like the story continues. So I think that's kind of cool. In the summer of '93, Sting would join forces with Davey Boy Smith against Vader and Sid Vicious throughout the summer of '93.
I don't think so.
Not going to. No, not gonna do it. Sting and Davey would get a tag team victory over the two masters of the powerbomb in the main event at Bash at the Beach '93 in July of said year.
That's when Vader. I know it's about Sting, but that's when Vader first did the moonsault off the goddamn top rope. And remember, Davey Boy's bead whipped him in the eye, so Davey couldn't see. He's like, "Oh, yeah." It was a good match, actually. It was really fun. That was a fun match too.
Maybe don't wear those. I'm just saying. Getting into the WCW International Championship, WCW once again pulled away from the NWA, and they would adopt the big gold belt as the WCW International Heavyweight Championship. At May's Slamboree of '94, Sting took on his old rival Vader for the vacant belt in a strong 14-minute effort that saw Sting emerge as the new champion.
Face, he got him. Referee can't do that. 1, 2, 3. We got a new champion. The winner, an international heavyweight champion who won the only Sting. Well, he fought his way back.
Following that, Vader and Sting had one last major match, with Vader defeating both Sting and the Guardian Angel, who was the big boss man, in a number
The
one
Guardian
contenders
Angel,
triangle.
Jesus
I know, it's
Christ.
silly. Number one contenders triangle elimination match at Fall Brawl of '94.
I know I
That's
yada
probably-
yada past the last couple matches. All of them are worth watching. There's not one bad match that you can get your hands on with Sting and Vader that was not worth watching. Literally, all of them are worth watching.
At the ring, he just hit Sting. The masked man again. That's that same guy. The same guy who hit Hogan in the leg just hit Sting. Where's he going? Wait a minute. Yes, yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. That's wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, the referee raises Vader's hand, which means the number one contender to the World Heavyweight Championship is Vader.
Oh, for crying out loud!
I know they talk about Flair because Flair anointed him in '88 at Clash of the Champions, and then Flair would
Yes.
give the belt to him, as out of respect at Great American Bash '90. They fought at the first Nitro, Flair. They fought at the last Nitro, and they
Right.
did, so I get that why they say that Flair is his best rivalry, but to me, like the stiff, loving wrestling fan, it's Vader and Sting all day long. And I loved Sting and Flair's rivalry, but a lot of their matches were repetitive, because they were both showmen. But Vader and Sting, I
Yeah.
think every individual match, I was like, oh, like every time I'd be like, okay, oh no, like, and they just when the
That-
match started opening up, I was like, oh, okay, like Vader would just start punching him, and I was like, okay, it's on, like, and then they just started doing
Yeah.
crazy shit to each other. Like Sting would do crazy shit, like just force him on the top rope, and he's like, I'm fucking suplexing you, just buckle in, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, and then Vader's like, that's fine, I'll Vader bomb you 19 times in a row, like, and they just would just trade off, and they did have the common spots that they did, but like
Sure.
a lot of their matches had different psychology. Like it was just different. I mean, the strap match, obviously you're doing something different, but then the triangle match was totally different. And then Vader wrestled Sting a different way in '92, the Great American
Right.
Bash, and then they completely wrestled a more polished match in Starrcade '92. So they changed. You watch their matches like get better and better because they trusted each other more. So in '94, when Bischoff's like, "I just need you to fight Vader and just do some shit," and they're like, "Okay," like, and so they would just go out. None of their matches are bad. You will not go wrong watching any of their matches at all,
And
ever.
they're not to your point, Jess. They're not cookie cutter at all. I mean, I know one's a gimmick match we talked about with the strap, so it can't be. But their matches were not. Like you can do a lot of Flair versus somebody, and you look at them and they all have the same, dance. The da 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 da. Sting and Vader never really did. Like you said, there's some set moves, and we get it, but everybody's got set moves. Um, but I'll tell you, like you said it right. I don't know why, other than outside of it being snug and being like like it was like shock moment, but I can't put my finger on it entirely. But the first thing I think about with Sting is Vader, and I don't know why that is. I feel like it should be Flair. Everybody says that, but it's never that. It's never what shoots in my mind. And for me, it's always that strap match. Whenever I think of Sting, I think of that damn strap match, and I'm like,
Well,
that was brutal.
and like I
was
said too,
shocked by it.
I
It's
think we
burned in.
think about Sting and Vader because they needed this feud. And like I said, after Flair left and the whole thing and
Right.
all that stuff, and it's like Sting was the only one left hero wise. And I'll give Bill Watts credit. If anybody else was a booker, they may not have had Vader go over Sting.
Right. That's
And
actually a
but
very good
because
point.
Vader did that to him in Great American Bash and pinned him clean, that was like, oh, and then Sting's character had no choice but to either cower away or just go and fight him. And then all the way to '94, Sting didn't like if you're talking about their character, Sting was the first character to be like, "I'll fuck you up." Like he always challenged Vader. He was never afraid of him, and like that. And I mean, their character, like they were friends in real life, but like and then when Vader died, Sting was at his deathbed, if I'm remembering correctly. Sting went
Oh,
went and sat by his bed when he passed away because he knew like that they had a connection with each other. I'm pretty sure I got that right. So like there
Yeah.
was there was always
I know Sting went and paid respects for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Um,
know if he was there when Vader took his last breath. His family might have been there with them, but Sting was there, like all throughout. They said like Sting would be there and with Leon like before he passed. So like Sting knew it, and it was just something that Sting always knew. You and I are linked together forever. So and that was it also makes Sting a great human being, and all the stuff of why we love Sting, and that's what this whole month is about. But their rivalry is awesome. Like I can't tell you any match you want to go back and watch where they faced each other. Go ahead, have a good one because like it's going to be good. The
so
tag match, Match of the Beach '93, fine. Every time Vader and Sting got in there, they started hitting each other. Like it was really cool.
So what was Yokozuna's title reign? When did that go to and from? Like
It
not
was
not
it
the
was
one where he had it for 5 minutes.
no, I mean it was parallel with
June
Vader.
of
Like well,
'94 to
I thought
yeah,
it was 92,
Ju-
right?
it was June of '93 when he beat Hogan. For the belt back. So
Uh,
their Vader was first, and then Yoko was second. Vince copied
that
Vader. I always said that from the start. Like
that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure I had that right before I
it was the
blurted it
first
out. But
time
I'm
that
like,
Vince decided, hey, you know what? I think I need a heel, and I would like someone to chase him because they didn't have a Hogan anymore. So Vader in '92,
right,
in summer of '92, won the title. Yoko debuted on WWF television in November or October of '92, and then he would beat Brett at WrestleMania 9, lose to Hogan in 5 minutes, but then he would win at King of the Ring in '93. So, and that's the only time that I saw Vince. I mean, maybe later, like more modern time, he trusted a heel, but like with Roman because
sure,
Vince was still there before he got booted out under Roman's
right.
reign. So like, but the Yoko was the first heel that Vince trusted, and decided that there's no way out of all the things that WCW tried to copy from WWF, to this day, and I'll go to my dying day saying Vince saw something in Vader and said we could do that here. We have to do that here. It's the wrestling climate. It's what they want to see. It's what fans want to see. Let's get Brett chasing somebody like Yoko.
For one, I just have to say that's one of the few times where WWF might have panicked and the brass got the Vince and said, "You got to see what they're doing with Vader over there," and had him change his plans. Now,
There's
the only
no
difference
doubt in my
though is that
mind that's what they said. There's
yeah,
no doubt.
eh,
Like
I
the
and
way
I
they
and
did
I
it
agree
and
with
the way
you.
they both mirrored each other, I was like, there's no fucking way. And then one of the first
I
people that
just hate
Vader
to say
feuded
it.
with,
The Yoko character had nothing outside of pure heel heat, where you legitly hated him. Vader had a following. which made it more fun and going up against Sting. And it didn't matter who won; it was going to be a hell of a match, and you're going to be really happy either
Well,
way.
WCW
If
was
Yoko
known for
won,
that
you're
too
going to
because
be pissed. You know.
WWE also sweetened their syndicated crowd noise. So it's like Vince always did that when he wanted you to go a certain way, he would make sure that you were influenced that way. But
Yeah,
WCW never
that
did
too.
that. So Joe always loved WCW because of that, or Crockett, because he was like, dude, sometimes the heels are fucking cheered. If they're doing better than the face, they get cheered. And there was a lot of times where Vader would lay it on and that crowd would erupt, and Vader would pose to the crowd and be like, yeah, like that. And like, it's because they knew, like, and WCW was different and special because of that. And I hope that AEW finds that rhythm because and is successful with it, because when WCW was that alternative, to me, it was special. It was never going to make as much money as the WWE. AEW will never make as much money as WWE. But like if you find that sweet spot like ECW tried in the middle, like, and if you can get it right, like it's cool, organic. When people would cheer for Vader, it's because he would beat the shit out of somebody. And we were like, yeah, fuck damn it. Like, and Sting was that hero that antied him, and we were like, okay, like, like this is what we want to see. We want to see the hero who's kind of bubblegum and cookie cutter and high five and yay and all that stuff. But when he's challenged, like Sting's character was like, no, fuck this shit. Like, I'll get in there with you too. Like, and I'll punch you right in the face, or I'll suplex you right off the top rope. And that's what this whole feud was all about. It was about, like, to me, it was the beginnings of what wrestling fans wanted to see that ended up coming out in 97, 98. And Sting and Vader were that. Like, we just didn't know, no promoters knew how to really harness it. And Vince was afraid of the real snug guys like Vader because there was no place in that for WWF. It had to be all character and cookie cutter, and you lightly tapped the
Bubblegum.
top stars. You did not touch them. But like in WCW, Sting's fucking knees were touching his head a lot. Like, from a
Right.
choke slam or a pin, it didn't matter. And it's to me, it's Sting's greatest feud. I get why Flair should be. I understand all of that, and I'm not disrespecting that. But Vader and Sting, to me, like, you gotta go back and watch their shit. All of it was good.
Always.
Sting was a Doberman in the corner that didn't know he was a Doberman. He could have had a lot
That's
more
what I
power
think,
than he did, and he never exercised it.
Like
He
you said,
could
he
have-
was a big fish in a little pond, but he never saw himself as that big fish.
He
I
could have had a
totally
lot
agree
more.
with you.
He could have stood up and said, "I want to beat Vader." He could have stood up and said, "I want more times over with Flair." He could have said, "I want more shit over the NWO," or not taking this a full year, like whatever. He just kind of went with the flow, and at the end of the day, I think I respect him more for it. I think he sleeps well at night more than anybody. Like, and
Yeah.
He ca- he
he's
cared
chosen
about-
his.